Quite simply, I don't see a way for Michigan to beat Oregon this weekend. I think Oregon is going to be able to name the number. And we're talking about Oregon more or less rolling through the month of November, probably as the number one team in college football for the entirety of the month, if the College Football Playoff Selection Committee knows what's good for them. I don't see the argument that Georgia will have a road to number one on Tuesday or any other day, quite frankly, because we've seen what Oregon is capable of. A, they are undefeated. B, they beat an Ohio State team that might beat a Penn State team that's the number 3 team in the country. And they did it in a fashion in which we think is representative of just how good Oregon can be. And I think many people would love to see a rematch of that 49-3 showing that Georgia gave to Oregon a couple years ago in a national championship game, because Dan Lanning is still the same guy. Kirby Smart is still the same guy. And that is very much a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban kind of relationship. We got a former defensive coordinator for what is the new king of college football playing against each other. I would love to see how this works out. There's lots of fascinating storylines in there. Among them, Dillon Gabriel versus Carson Beck. And I don't think we're really having that discussion anymore either. We know that Dillon Gabriel is a better quarterback than Carson Beck, and it could be in such a game for which we see Dillon Gabriel break and then extend the record for the most career passing yards in a season. I don't care that he played 6 seasons. I don't. I care that he has been allowed to continue to play a quarterback, and he's continued to play it at such a high level, and he's got these really great wins against really quality programs. We're talking about a great Texas team last year that made the college football playoff that he beat. We're talking about an Ohio State team that hadn't lost to anybody not named Michigan in the regular season for the better part of 5 years. We're talking about them going into the defending national champions and handing them what could be a resounding L. And at a time when Michigan doesn't really have an identity. They lost what was a starter at quarterback for them and Jack Tuttle not even a couple of weeks ago to a retirement because he's just had that many concussions. And Jack Tuttle had been playing football as long as Dillon Gabriel had been playing football. That storyline is gone because I knew that we were going to have the 7th-year quarterbacks in Alan Bowman and Cam Rising to start the season. Didn't think that Jack Tuttle was going to make it into that because I thought Alex Orji or Davis Warren would take that job. But right now it feels like they're going to play both of those guys in Davis Warren and Alex Orji. And if you are Tosh LaPoy and Dan Lanning, you have every reason to just come after that Michigan offense when you see Alex Orji at quarterback and you know enough to know that Davis Warren wants to throw you the football. I expect that defense to eat. And might I add, we have not seen Terrence Ferguson or Jordan Burch in the same game in almost a month. And that makes them a better football team than what they had been. I'm also thinking about that 2020 Alabama team where Devontae Smith ends up winning the Heisman, but I think he also wins the Heisman because Jalen Waddle is not there to take what our targets away. And then they get Jalen Waddle back, right? It's kind of ridiculous that they're able to do what they are with Evan Stewart at one side and Trayshawn Holden when he's not stupid enough to spit on people on national television. And then you can run the football with guys like Noah Whittington and Jordan James. And Jordan James has really been coming on here of late behind that offensive line that should be in the running for the Joe Moore Award, along with places like Texas as the best offensive line in football. I don't think that this is going to be the referendum on Michigan that many people want it to be because we've already decided that this Michigan team is not good, and we're trying to see if they're going to get the bowl eligibility. That would be the more remarkable story. That after going 15-0 and winning the national championship, cheating to do it, you turn around with a new head coach and you can't get to bowl eligibility. That I don't think is going to go over well, even in a season where I think most Michigan fans should just take what they can get. If you went 0-12, would it feel good? No, but you also get to shine up your 2023 national championship, which is something that Oregon can't say. Oregon has never won a national championship. Oklahoma can't say it. They ain't won no national championship 25 years. Texas can't say it. They ain't won no national championship in 19 years. Georgia is right there, but they would never have this sort of a season at Georgia with Kirby Smart as head coach. And that's really also what it comes back to. Sherrone Moore is getting this year to feel it out, see what has to happen. And if they can make a late rush on Bryce Underwood, you can feel hopeful about what that team might do on a championship level in 2025. But that's a big if. And that would be the silver lining that I'm looking for if I'm a Michigan fan. Perhaps you put enough on tape to have Bryce Underwood knowing without a doubt he will show up and be the guy because they ain't got nobody else. But in as far as developing quarterbacks, it's J.J. McCarthy and Parts that you really are talking about in the college football playoff era in as far as great Michigan quarterbacks come out. I mean, really, the list gets to be kind of dark pretty quickly when you talk about Cade McNamara, when you talk about Shea Patterson, when you talk about Wooden Spate, talk about Joe Milton didn't get it figured out at Michigan, got it figured out at Tennessee. Like, these things, I think, also go into the calculus. And when you are arrogant enough to not go get a guy out of the portal and you think that you got to develop what's there, well, at least Bryce Underwood would also know, well, they're probably not going to go get somebody out of the portal, but that also has everything to do with Kurt Campbell, who might not be the offensive coordinator at Michigan if they keep this up. Matter of fact, many Michigan fans are going, how does Oklahoma fire its offensive coordinator before Michigan fires its offensive coordinator? And there you have it, right? That's the way the thinking has been going. Bryce Underwood being at LSU, though, I think is a fit because I expect Garrett Nussmeier to get drafted next year, and I expect there to be an open quarterback competition. And Bryce Underwood could 100% win that. But to get started with LSU and that SEC is not to get started with Michigan in this Big Ten. If anything, that's what I'm going to try to sell Bryce Underwood. Either we played really well and we have enough here to help you in 2025, to help us, or we played so badly that you can see you show up to Michigan and you be our J.J. McCarthy. You be the guy that brings us back to a national championship team. Not a national caliber team, but a national championship team. I think that's also in play there. But you never can tell in the transfer portal what a guy like Bryce Underwood would get. We do know this, though. As soon as you start putting stuff down on tape, the value of what you're going to add goes down. Like DJ Lagway is probably going to be a great quarterback given some time. But I think they play well against Florida. Billy Napier gets to stick around because they don't want to lose DJ Lagway. Same thing would be true of, say, a Bryce Underwood with Sherrone Moore at Michigan, if that's the guy that he's decided to go with. But, at one point we're talking about Bryce Underwood going to Colorado before, going to LSU and really being the guy that BK brought in. And not for nothing, but BK has had Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, and he's got receipts to show, look, my guys throw the football, my guys can play for Heisman trophies, and we expect to be a national championship team. Because that's why Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to be the head coach at LSU. He looked at the program. He looked at what Nick Saban was able to do with it more than 25 years ago and said, I want some of that. If I can get that job at a time when Nick Saban was still at Alabama, I'm going to take that job. And he went down there with nobody. None of the, shall we say, primary assistants followed. Like Tommy Rees and Marcus Freeman, they stayed right there at Notre Dame. And he built this thing in such a way that Jaden Daniels could go down and make something happen, frankly, in a way that I just didn't think was possible for him based on what we had seen at Arizona State. And he's been able to keep that up at Washington, which has me asking questions about what the hell it was that Herm Edwards was thinking when he had Jaden Daniels basically a Ferrari that he was driving like a lawnmower. And then BK and them with Mike Denbrock said, hey, look, just go make it happen. And I've given you Brian Thomas Jr. and I've given you Malik Neighbors. They're probably open, one or the other. And if they're not, take off and run with it. And that's how you get a 3,800-yard passer, an 1,100-yard rusher, and the Heisman Trophy winner at LSU twice in the last 4 years. That's what Bryce Underwood is expecting to do. Michigan, I don't know about that. However, it's not going to change the calculus for Oregon, right? Oregon could win this game by a point. They're still going to be the number one team in the country. I think the only other team that might have an argument would be Penn State if they're able to beat Ohio State at Beaver Stadium. But given what we've seen from Oregon lately, and given how out we have been on Penn State, it's an interesting discussion, right? I think if you're undefeated and you're in the Big Ten, you're going to have to play in the Big Ten championship, or you're going to play each other at one point or another, and that'll settle itself. But for the time being, Oregon names the number against Michigan. Michigan tries to build something like momentum for 2025.